Hey everyone, it's Thyworm with a new video on the big fucking patch 1. I want to talk a bit about the changes, what to expect and my personal thoughts. Source material will be the Devlog 5 and 6, the latest Pagan Online News Message and the new patch notes that just released 2 hours ago. Act 6. There's not that much to say about it because we simply don't know what's going to happen. Because of the server reset, we will have to work our way through the first 5 acts again, after which we can enjoy the new content. Based on some small hints, I am guessing we're off to sea, maybe on a boat? I'm on a boat! Overall, however, I'm just super excited. It feels a little bit to me like a new season of Game of Thrones. Whenever that happened, I watched all the previous episodes again to be completely up to date and ready for the new season. With the new playthrough, I'm going to get immersed again into the land of rot and then thoroughly enjoy Act 6. New crafting and loot. So what's new here? Well, quite a lot. Weapons and items will have more relevant stats, which is another way of saying they are less random. This should help you create more streamlined builds. Something else that's interesting is that the differences between crafted and dropped gear will be less, making you less dependent on crafting. A very welcomed change, I think. Crafting itself will also be a lot less random because of the way the new crafting works. All recipes will look a lot more like the legendary blueprints, with a certain amount of guaranteed statistics. After reforging, these stats stick, although their values change exactly like crafting legendaries, which is really nice. Reforging also rolls random bonus stats, which you can get in addition to the guaranteed stats. The devs put a lot more emphasis on the base items for crafting. Crafting tiers are gone, craftsman levels are gone as well. As a result, the base items determine the strength of the crafted item, both in terms of power level and statistics that are applied during crafting. This means no more grinding to get craftsman levels in order to get the best reforges. Instead, start hunting for a good recipe, find the appropriate base item and craft yourself a great item without any real downside. Dropped items, on the other hand, cannot be reforged anymore. That means that dropped items in terms of usefulness should be on par with crafted items. If that is not the case, crafting will still be better than drops. To balance it a bit further, crafting recipe drops are more rare. All this should lead to dropped items being viable. The conclusion here is that crafting becomes optional, because dropped items can be just as good, at least in theory. Because dropped items can't be reforged, that limits their usefulness somewhat, because they are still less flexible than crafted items. It comes down to personal preference, I suppose. The only thing that crafting will offer, I think, is a more controlled environment, especially after you have found a good recipe, because you can really min-max for the optimal result. New character progression. There will be multiple ways to gain skill points to invest in all the new shiny skill trees. Skill points are called potency points and can be used to either get a new skill or augment an already unlocked skill. Leveling up grants you a point, but also special missions have potency points as a reward. Skills can be augmented to reach level 3, which probably boosts the damage percentages, for example from 100% to 200% physical damage. Gear can further enhance the skills in the future up to level 8. That should lead to very significant buffs. Your primary attack can only be partly modified by altering the skill. Right mouse button and shift remain the same. You can't augment them in any way. The same is true for passives, which won't be receiving any love either during this patch. Still though, there's plenty of stuff to enjoy. Each hero gets 2 new abilities to choose from. The patch notes provide a pretty extensive list on the matter, and I'm not going to discuss this right now. Respecking will be as easy as just removing the potency points and putting them into another skill. The whole idea behind this new system is to allow you to create different builds. These builds consist of 3 elements. First, there's a bunch of new skills, which can replace the middle mouse button, E, F and space abilities that you previously had. Second, you can adapt certain skills, augment or modify them. Third, you can hunt and craft specific items to improve skills even more. These 3 layers should allow you to come up with some interesting character builds, and of course guys, I will be making video guides on builds that either the community or myself come up with. It's going to be pretty fun. New stats added and old stats removed. Stats weren't very meaningful, according to Mirko from Devlog 6. I suppose that's debatable, but it is fair to say that damage was the main meaningful statistic, while health and armor were basically necessities. Everything else was just fine and not super important. So what has changed? Evasion is gone. That's interesting. I get the philosophy behind it, that you should dodge yourself using active skills. I am just curious though about the amount of incoming damage, but more on that in a bit. Crit damage has become a single statistic. Strength raises this crit damage, Makes sense to me. Crit damage reduction is new, because there's no evasion, you're gonna get hit a lot and get crit every now and then, and that is probably why we need this stat. Dexterity raises the crit damage reduction. Additional defensive stats have to come from somewhere, so they invented Astral Shield, which basically functions like energy shields in Path of Exile. It regenerates when you're not taking damage, it depletes when you're taking damage, and intelligence raises the shield amount, even though the patch notes indicate otherwise. Easy mode confirmed there was an error in the patch notes. Resistances also get a bit of an overhaul because wards can now increase the resistance cap, making you effectively completely immune to elemental damage. It's really hard to say anything useful about these changes. I'll have to figure them out in-game. Once I have, I will create some videos about them explaining how they work exactly. Server wipe. I dedicated an entire video on this subject, so go and check that out if you haven't already. Difficulty. The idea is to reduce the gap between veteran players and new players. Somehow veteran players will face more challenge, but how does this work exactly? On the other hand, the game will be more forgiving towards new players, but it is not specified how this works. This remains altogether pretty unclear. I'm curious to see what happens in-game regarding these difficulty balance changes and how they manifest themselves. Guys, subscribe, like, you know what to do. See you all in-game hopefully, and expect more content real soon. Thanks for watching, goodbye.